Hello, welcome to another abridged commentary series. In this one, we're going to be looking at some highlights from a special game I picked up in the Steam sales recently. This game is called Godless Tactics, a turn-based tactics game with some adventuring elements. I was going to show you the hardest possible campaign in this game because I do consider myself to be one of the world's best players for reasons that will become clear. But I decided to keep things simple for this. We can do the most difficult possible campaign another time. For now, I'm going to show you the most complete story run through the game because there are different story routes and some are harder than others. So we're going to do the hardest story run on hard difficulty, but we won't be using all of these other things you can turn on to make the game harder. We'll worry about that another time. Before you begin, you have to create a player character, and this player character will have something of a custom class where their stats are determined by this thing you set up here. Other classes in the game have preset versions of this number set up to determine how their stats grow throughout the game. Well, we can talk about that another time. We've also allowed ourselves to become a mage with that monk perk there on the right. This means I can equip magical style weapons, or this game's version of magic, the machinist weapons. So we're essentially going to be creating a powerful mage character with high skill and machine stats, meaning they're good at using weapons and good at using quote-unquote magical weapons. Here's the start of the story. I'll abridge the story for this series. Essentially, it's very far in the future. Humanity has gone and come back and is now rebuilding themselves after surviving hundreds of years living underground. We're part of an elite military outfit working for one of the many states that is emerging, and we've been tasked with intervening in a war between a mysterious cloned race that appears to be taking over everything and our main allies who we are importing food from. Although they may not be our allies for long in the eyes of our masters, so we're sort of instructed to go out here and just help as much as it seems like we need to, and try to stop our interests from being impacted by the wider fighting. You'll see though as we go along that we don't actually have to do that. That's part of going through the different story routes of the game. Need to turn off the debug mode, which I had on as part of my pro player preparations. Don't worry about all that. So what's actually going on here? We are this dark blue flag at a town called Persal. This represents our strike team. It's a flag because it's inside a town. It turns into a circle outside, like those guys standing next to us, who are some of our soldiers. So we control this party, and we can somewhat influence what our soldiers do to help us out. The first thing I'm going to do is run away from any sort of combat onto this remote island to pick up this point of interest. There are various points around the map you can go to get stuff, resources, items, and even experience points. So that's handy. Then we come back to where we started. We're going to immediately go to the shops and start upgrading our party using the money we just got from visiting that point of interest. There's only so much you can do without much money early on, but you can get some of the tier 2 weapons and some good items to start the campaign off before you actually have to fight anyone, which makes life easier. A nice pro tip there. Here's another favourite strategy of mine. By being near this enemy settlement Washu, they come out to try and fight you but then don't because the garrison of your town behind you makes you look too strong. You can then go around behind them and just take the settlement. That's a pretty cheeky exploit. You have to choose whether to give the settlement to your allies, the Meshmedans, or to Lumida, who are the guys you're working for. You get happiness if you give it to Meshmedan. This happiness turns into money in effect. You just get some money, whereas giving it to Lumida would have given you reputation, the other number beside our money count at the bottom of the screen. Early in the game, getting some money is pretty useful because we can keep using it to buy better equipment and make the early game easier. So that's a tip. We'll work for our allies effectively to begin with, just to get rich, and then we'll go back to building reputation, which is important for various things we'll talk about later on. There's another point of interest to go to nearby, grabbing some more cash and a sword. Some enemies are trying to attack us here from our enemies, the Yumba. These are the cloned guys who are coming at us for mysterious reasons that we'll get to later. Well, that first battle was nothing. It was a really weak party, so we can just skip that. Using Autoresolve, what a nice feature. Now though, some more powerful enemies are nearby. You can see it said powered up for big push. That's an event where the entire enemy faction is going to focus on offense, and all of their invading parties become more powerful and more of them appear. I actually just upgraded the defenses of my base there to make it less likely to fall to such things. That does cost money though. I'll probably be skipping over more stuff like that as we go on. It's going to become more abridged. I thought I'd just show you some of the mechanics of this game because not many people know that much about it, and I know a lot. I'm just showing off right here. So we're going into battle against a nearby enemy party that was coming down to see us. So we'll take a brief look at the battle system. This one shouldn't be too hard, but we can just get a feel for how this works. It's essentially Fire Emblem if you've played those games. The same sorts of mechanics and systems with a few extra things added on to make it extra tactical. Here's that character we made earlier, our mage character. We have a magical weapon, the friction program, a machinist weapon I should say, which is particularly good against this enemy class of soldier, the duelist. The duelist is good in melee, but not good enough to avoid dying in one hit if we attack with our main DPS class, the Breaker. And it's like in Fire Emblem where you always get the first hit in a melee combat, so if you can kill them immediately, there's no risk of them attacking you back. Also, if you're much higher in skill than the enemy, they just can't hit you back because they suck, so you need to keep that in mind. To play things safe, this game does have permadeath, so any characters you lose, they're just straight up gone and the game will get harder, so we do need to play things a bit carefully. Luckily, as mentioned, I'm an expert here. I feel like I know what I'm doing. Like right here, this matchup, a scout versus a machinist. Scouts have large machinist resistance, so they don't take much damage from them. Neither do other machinists, which is the other class I'm using to attack here. Our other characters nearby are enough to take this first guy out. There's another guy nearby we need to worry about. With some decent skill stats, that means they might be able to actually hit us. We're going to pull our first Godless tactic to get away with this situation. I can't really attack them. I've got this duelist, Massey, down towards the bottom of the screen, who I haven't used yet this turn. I could potentially do something with them, but Simo here is in the way. We're going to use a switch. This costs that number where it says 20 at the bottom called Sync, and allows you to move characters into each other's tiles without costing any movement points. This allows all sorts of tactics. In this case, it allows me to get this character up front, who has high skill, meaning they're just good at fighting in general, good to have them out front. We can leave them with a ranged weapon equipped, because the enemy nearby also had a ranged weapon equipped. That means there might be a ranged battle about to start if they did choose to attack that character, which they certainly don't have to. But the idea is there. Looks like the enemy are coming down on the right and get their first damage on us. And we do get the fight I set up for right there and almost kill the enemy on the left. Now obviously we've got enough stuff here to overpower the 1 health left over on that foe. Once we get to the enemy's next turn, we see an interesting AI behavior that you don't always see in games like this. These enemies on the right are running away from our character off ED here. That's because it's on hard difficulty. The AI actually bothers to check whether it can fight and defeat you. It knows that these units probably will lose to off ED in a series of fights, and it's trying to move them away. This could be useful if there was something else they could do, but in a simple battle like this, all of their units will also have the same weaknesses, so we're destined to win, but nice to see them trying not to die a little bit. Skipping to the end, we've got a couple of enemies left alive here. But another nice feature of this game is that we don't have to bother clicking on them. If you know me, I hate to click the mouse on things. We can just auto-resolve what remains of the fight, because we will win it from here. In fact, we've got the auto-resolve safe thing in the corner you might have seen, which means you're guaranteed not to lose any units if you just skip the rest of the fight. And in many cases you can just do that right near the beginning if it's a fight that's quite easy. There we go then, we've taken down that invasion force. That will stop the enemy from taking our little corner we've got down there. We'll look at the full map geography of what's actually going on here later, trying to keep things focused for now. As for our next decision, there are two things we can attack, an enemy castle to the north and an enemy invasion force coming in from the east. That looks moderately powerful actually. The number to the top left of their icon is their average level, so on average they're higher level than us, and the other number is how many guys are in the party. Again, more than us. We though don't need to fight them. We can just go and take the castle, because if they sweep around and take our allies' stuff, that doesn't really matter. We don't need to support our allies. Well, in this case the joke's on me, because after taking this castle, the invasion force immediately just attacks me to get it back. So now we do have to fight them. We're going to see another interesting feature of this game. That is the use of bases. Here my units are disappearing. In a sort of abstract sense, they're going into a base that allows them to pop out of another base nearer to the front line, just a fast way of moving troops. Another way to move troops is let the AI do it, which is what those rotating things with the shadows behind them represent. We've got the AI moving some of our units into position, so I don't have to do it. Just more clicks saved, another great feature. I've popped out the rest of my units from the nearby base, and there we go, we're going to defend this area where we've got a few walls, some trenches, and some stakes, which will either stop the enemy moving through or will slow them down. Need to actually switch off the AI mode there to get a character in amongst my other characters to use the boost action, which is making that little noise and making pluses appear. Those boosts just increase the stats of nearby characters, so if you're going to be defending a blobby area, good to have everyone pop the boost on each other. It only lasts for one turn though. So now the enemy are in front of us, we need to do something about this. Those stakes will slow them down, so they can't attack us, but we can't really attack them either. I'm going to have this Stalwart class be up front because they have high defense, they can just tank stuff. But we are limited for offensive options. I can take a shot with this duelist, it's guaranteed to hit due to their high skill, but their attack isn't so good, so it doesn't do much damage. Check this out though, I'm going to move this mage out of the way, swap in another duelist, use boost, and then attack. This causes me to attack twice because the boost increased my speed above the threshold for getting 2 attacks in one turn, thus doubling my damage. What a godless tactic. It's all going by very fast by the way, because I've actually got it on fast animations mode that I didn't realise I still had turned on. I think I eventually turned it back to the regular slower mode, where it becomes a bit more obvious what's actually going on if you're not already paying very close attention. On this left side, I was concerned about what to do because there are 2 mages coming up, and the mages tend to be quite good against a lot of things. 2 things they aren't that good against are synergists and scouts. That's the 2 classes I've just sent out to deal with them, so that's particularly handy. We're taking a load of attempted hits, but it's not doing all that much, either misses or sustainable damage. And here is me remembering the fast animations are on. You can even turn them off during a bunch of animations and it doesn't crash the game. You might think that's not that remarkable, but I happen to know that it is remarkable, so that's interesting. With the enemy now tucked in right in front of us and some of them standing on debuffing terrain like the stakes, it's time for us to strike back. In fact, right here, this enemy on the stakes is 100% likely to get hit by that attack, which would kill them in one hit as well, so we immediately clear out the first foe. We bring down our main DPS character, the Breaker, for a long-ranged attack with a crossbow, one of the upgraded weapons I bought recently. Normally you wouldn't have that this early in the game, but it really is just a matter of quickly collecting some cash and going for the purchase. So we get a nice easy kill there. The enemies have a lower tier of weapons than us, of course, so they all do less damage, and they suck. At the beginning of the game, your party is slightly stronger than enemies even of the same level, although that isn't the case as the levels sort of even out going along. Anyway, we take down another enemy in front of us, and now things are looking much clearer at our defences. We're going to skip mainly towards the end now. Here's one more thing I wanted to highlight. When our characters get damaged, we can just bring them off the map using that same base thing I used earlier. This reduces my offensive potential, but it stops our characters from dying. There is permadeath, as I said, so need to keep that in mind. And while they're away in the base dimension, their health does gradually come back too, so you can heal them without using healing items in battle. We eventually win, and that's that. It tells us we have a new reputation reward. That's the thumbs up symbol that we saw there. This is just another passive system of gaining buffs. So we've got a bit of reputation, unlocking 10% shop discount for the AML. We're the AML, by the way, that's the name of our faction. Not that that even matters really. So if we go back to our base and buy stuff now, it will be a bit cheaper than normal. I'm going to do that immediately. Again, allowing the AI to control my party as they move down there, just so I don't have to click on the tiles, particularly useful if you want to move a really long distance. We go down the shops, buy some more stuff, so more of our party is at the next tier of weapons. We can also complete a couple of missions. There's this mission system. There are main missions that you do to progress the game, and side missions that are just like kill 5 enemies and things like that. And we can grab some free rewards for doing that. Some of the rewards we got were battle commendations. That's a currency you use in this HQ menu to buy more passive things, but some of them are pretty important, especially later on. There's an easy one to get that just gives you a bit of background income. Here's one I like to go for as early as possible, the Fieldcraft Center. That one's expensive, but it gives you extra movement range on the campaign map, which is always useful. The earlier the better, you want that, really. So we'll save up some commendations for that sort of thing. While I was here, I looked at the faction reports menu. This gives you a rough idea of how powerful the various factions are. Our faction isn't even on here because we barely have anything, but the light blue faction are the guys we're working for, the green faction are our allies, and the red factions are enemies. Those numbers don't matter too much for our purposes here, but that's something happening in the background. I get interrupted by a cutscene. My masters are telling me to take out some rebels nearby. Our master faction is splintered between a main area and a rebel area. They're also noting that it might be good if our allies happen to have a little accident during this war and get wrecked. So that's just some suggestions about how you can play the game effectively. And how you want to go through the story kind of depends whether you're going to listen to these people or not. Since I already know what's going to happen, we're not going to be listening too much to our own masters actually, although for now, we will carry on and keep conquering the small island that we happen to be on. I came to engage this enemy supply train to steal some stuff. It was a 2-star battle, that means I can't auto-resolve it with a guarantee of not losing any guys. But what we can do is go in, damage the enemy a bit, which technically reduces the strength of their party down to the point when I can auto-resolve it with that guarantee, represented by the A down in the right hand corner, and boom, we skip having to do that battle. Very useful. You could even just skip it entirely by being a little bit risky, as I do for the next battle. It was only 2 stars, and we didn't lose anyone. That's very nice of the game. I think it was patched after it came out to make you less likely to lose a guy in a 2-star fight specifically, as I recall. Now moving on towards the east of this island, I do the old exploit again of pulling the enemy out of one of their settlements and then going around behind them to take it. That only works against the enemy parties that have the sword and shield icon on them because they're different to normal garrisons. Very exploitable. They come back to suicide attacks since they can't do anything else, and we kill them also in the end. Handy. We need to take the east side of this island, in particular that town nearby. Aglavy is one of my primary targets, and there's a port on the east side, to complete the story mission based around capturing this island. Here we can plow into 2 enemy parties at once. On the map, any party that's adjacent to a fight happening will get involved as well, but if they're just loads of low-level guys, they're not really going to influence the difficulty, and we can just skip through all that, gaining more and more experience and resources. I grabbed the point of interest nearby. This is one that has a codex entry. Some of them give you some lore text as you investigate them, and all of the towns have lore text as well. We're not going to be talking about that sort of thing at all in this campaign or in this commentary, but it's there. More importantly, finding a point of interest levels up your characters, which is handy. Looks like the enemy are about to do another of those big push things, so loads of strong enemies are about to show up. Might need to keep that in mind. The fact it's on hard difficulty, by the way, does increase the extent to which that is happening. There are even a few hard enemies already visible nearby, and because they have the sword icon on them, that means they are invasion forces. They'll be coming in this direction very soon. Well, I did actually spend some time killing guys coming over here for a bit just to train up some more, and then I went in for an attack on the nearby town, which is the primary settlement on the island, or the most important settlement on the island. There's a whole system where the different settlements do different things on the world map. They provide different parties to the enemy's faction and different amounts of resources and value. It doesn't matter so much, especially in the beginning, but you can do some sneaky things by knowing all that and what parties can come out of what locations. Well, doesn't matter, we're just going to take this place right now. It's only a 2-star battle, so once again, after we've damaged some enemies or taken out a couple of them, that's enough for us to say, well, we're good enough, the game will just let me have this one and save me some real life time. Thanks, whoever developed this, very considerate. Oh, and by the way, I haven't completely replaced my party. You can just rename your characters, so I gave them all some random names. That's what's going on there. After this win, our characters are so trained up that there's nothing really on this island that can challenge us. The levels of the parties you're likely to face are based roughly on the levels of the settlements. Those are the numbers next to the names. And our numbers are higher than the enemy's numbers, and that's always a good thing. At this stage, we just rampage through, auto-resolving anything in our way, which only makes us stronger, although the experience points you get for fighting parties that are weaker than you are very slim. You still get some money and some stuff that we can use later. I was aware that the enemy still have some military presence, like this invasion force is pushing towards the middle. If they recapture that castle, they could deploy more invasions right out of the middle of the island. That's part of the settlement system. The military type buildings are important for taking territory. We'll talk about that another time. My base is actually under attack by a high level party that's very small from the south, a Pathfinder party. This means the rebels to the south are sniffing around my base. We'll need to pay some more attention to them. On hard mode you do get game overed if your base disappears, but if you have more bases you can keep playing, and we'll make more bases right now in fact. By doing this little trick, I can take an allied party from a recently captured settlement and spend some reputation to get them to just follow me around the map. This is incredibly powerful. That party makes it a one-sided fight to capture the main port on the east side of the island, and that port, as you might have seen, can be turned into one of my bases instead of being turned over to our allies. This means we can use that location to recruit new party members, buy stuff, and get up to some general shenanigans. Before that, we've got some missions to tick off our list to claim some more stuff. Just 3 generic passive missions, and the more important mission, securing Skifount Beda. That's the name of the island we're on. The game is full of fake languages based on English and French, so that's something going on in the background that might make things confusing. But the island has been conquered by us, according to the cutscene that now plays, but it also mentions how the locals kind of preferred the other guys, and the other guys seemed pretty sure that the island belongs to them in some way. Well, that's starting to hint towards the plot of the game and the plot line we'll be following. I went to the base after this and used the stage attack function. This allows you to deploy an invasion force type party out of one of your bases that will go and take some nearby enemy territory for you. This saves me from having to go around auto-resolving a bunch of level 1 settlements. I could just send out some guys to do that for me. That sounds much easier. And in fact, in this case, we don't really need to send out guys at all, because the nearby allied factions are strong enough to do it on their own if we just leave them to it. It takes time for resources to build up in settlements, and then they'll eventually start trying to conquer their neighbors. But we've got all of the main settlements on the island. While it looks like it's swarming with enemies, it's fine really. There's a look at the island as a whole, and I thought we'd finally look at the actual world we're in towards the end of this part. The main battlefield is far to our north along this river line. This is where the fight starts at the beginning of the game. Looks like the enemy have advanced pretty far already. This is affected by the fact it's on hard difficulty. The allied AI defending in this area just plays deliberately worse in order to let the enemy come forwards faster, so that you have to do something about it. You actually do lose the campaign if the enemy get into your allies' core region and destroy everything. We'll need to pay some attention to that whole war front then. We can either go there to intervene, or we can do various shenanigans and use our money to intervene from afar. Here I was just looking at this corner of the map where our allies have this tiny foothold. This corner is good for doing some exploit stuff if you're playing in one of the weirder game modes that you might have seen right at the very beginning. Well, we might talk about that in another campaign for some real exploits. For now, we'll keep things relatively normal. My plan now is to actually move south and attack the Lumidan rebels. This is a minor enemy faction that's not really that important. You don't have to fight them to progress the game. But you can make your side stronger by skipping over all of their settlements and just attacking their main city down here by this lake. Because if you take the city, all of their other stuff will surrender to you, and you can instantly gain a load of strength for your side. Although that might not actually be a good thing given the plot route we're going to be going down, which does involve a little bit of betrayal and side swapping, as we shall soon see. But we'll leave things here for now. Hopefully you've learned a few Godless tactics from my expert level commentary. This game might still be on sale in the Steam Summer Sale if you're watching this in time, so check it out. It's actually pretty good, a real diamond in the rough. It may look like a load of colourful shapes just going at it, but it's a lot more than that. This was one of my favourite games of 2020, so it's nice to revisit it a year on. And I hope you'll check it out as well, because I want to support this developer as much as possible. Or you can check out part 2 of this series, which will be coming very soon, to see a bit more of the world, more of the stuff you can do in the game, and of course some more Godless tactics from your #1 worldwide Godless Tactics player. I'll see you for that.